There's this old proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's the thread that twines our Exceptional Minds with RoboKind podcast. We want to connect you with the voices, the people, the movements, the work that's happening to promote, inspire, and achieve inclusive and celebratory moments for all. I'm Brian Baggs, CEO of RoboKind. Welcome to our episode.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Dr. Kershaw. And we are so excited for you all to be joining today for our Autism Acceptance Month webinar in the grand month of April. And so, for those of you who are new to RoboKind, and what we do here is that we are an education technology company. We combine assistive technology with meaningful curriculum that accelerates measurable outcomes for marginalized students. And today I have the pleasure of interacting with Dr. Lisa Kershaw. And so she is a partnership manager here, but then also our professional learning lead, leading our amazing professional learning team. And so, Dr. Kershaw, first off, thank you so much for joining. The crazy thing is, you actually just were hosting this webinar last month. So,
Glad to be here in this capacity.
yes, of course. And I have also confirmed that we are officially live on Facebook. And so the running joke is that every time that Lisa has been live with us is that it has not gone live because of technical issues. So I'm glad. Guess what? We're officially doing it.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Okay, so Lisa, as I mentioned before, and what we are aware of is that it is Autism Acceptance Month. And so we use the word acceptance intentionally. And one thing I wanted to do this month is honestly talk to someone who is really closely tied to the world of autism. And for you, just giving a foreshadow for everybody regarding this conversation is that Lisa, are personally connected with someone who has autism. You have worked from a state level in the sense of autism coordination. And then also now you are working with RoboKind, and where we specialize with curriculum catered for students with autism. So you, quite frankly, I think might be the most qualified person, correct, in talking about autism acceptance. Yes?
Think about it.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, and so I first want to touch base. Can you explain a little bit more about like your personal life and your connection? I have some other questions, but feel free to give an overview of like your life, how you're connected personally.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have 4 children, and the first of them was a set of twins, 2 boys, and we knew from the start they were preemies, but we knew from the start that one of them was not meeting milestones, developmental milestones, as you would hope they would. Um, but during that time, this was 30 years ago, you didn't see autism being diagnosed the same. So we had no idea even what autism was. We figured that there was maybe some delays intellectually. There were some physical delays, perhaps. And so we actually went many years before he got an accurate diagnosis. He was at 5th grade when we actually finally got a diagnosis that he was autistic. And still, we didn't know what that meant. We had no idea. And so it took a lot of learning to, first of all, even figure out what that was, and to find others in the community who were going through the same journey. We found that there was a lot of isolation. So you didn't readily find other parents who had kids who had autism or who spoke of it. And so initially, it was a journey of learning on our own.
What did that then look like for you to learn more about autism?
Well, as goes with my personality, sometimes unfortunately, is when I want to learn it all.
I see.
And so, yeah, it was diving in to say, first of all, who knew something about autism. So there's research, of course, that you look up. We spoke with our doctors, we spoke with educational psychologists, and of course, we spoke with the school system, who, for them, also autism in the school was new. And so, one of our concerns was how was Clarence going to be educated appropriately for what he needed so that he could maximize his capabilities. And it took working with the teachers to come up with a program because there was nothing specific for autism. There was no curriculum. Um, Luckily, Clarence did not deal with a lot of negative behaviors, but he had a lot of shutdown behaviors. So he would kind of roll into a ball and you could not move him. If he was uncomfortable, that was his means of communication. And so
Yeah.
we had to come up with a way to educate the teachers on how he needed to communicate. So a lot of it was us working with the teachers based on what we learned at home to help them work with Clarence in the school, which kind of led to my next jump, which was I figured I could save the world of autism. And so I decided I was going to go into special education.
Okay, so yeah, so you obviously mentioned now, like over 30 years ago, they were just still developing research and understanding about autism. You guys felt a little bit isolated in your own journey with taking care of Clarence. Uh, and then it sounds like as a result of doing so much research and then also obviously taking care of your own son, then that kind of catapulted you into like this new world of like actually jumping into a role that supports it. And so I feel like that answers my question is like, how has your personal experience influenced the way that you advocate for autistic individuals in now your professional life?
Yeah, it has greatly influenced what I've done as a professional because I was not an educator when I jumped into
Mm.
this realm. I actually had a major in criminal justice and I worked in the nonprofit world in terms of youth programming. That was
At
my
the
only.
University of South Carolina, correct?
We're not talking football here,
Okay,
but yes,
okay.
the University of South Carolina for my first bachelor's.
Nice.
And yes, so I thought I was going to go into the world of criminal justice for youth.
Yeah.
And instead, I took a turn. We have a wonderful program in South Carolina that allows for alternative certification if you have a bachelor's degree in certain things. And I found out that I qualified to teach students with emotional disabilities. And that was the place that a lot of students with autism were sent to learn, that type of classroom.
So they were not part of a special education at that point, or was it a
They,
subsect of
they
special
were,
education?
they were, but there were not, some of our classes we have specific to the type of disability
Hmm.
because autism presented itself in so many different ways as we
Yeah.
talk about the spectrum.
Yes.
Many times because of the behaviors, as they would call them, they would put them in a class for students with emotional disabilities, which
Yeah.
is what a lot of folks did around the United States. And so that was where I got my teaching certificate and where I started to run into, of course, a lot of other students who had autism.
Yeah.
Um, and again, not being well versed because in college at that time, you did not go through specific training on autism.
Yeah.
Again, I'm finding my way.
Yes.
I'm finding my way. I'm educating the paraprofessionals in my classroom, and we're turning out to be very successful in our classroom in taking our students who had autism and moving them from what we call that self-contained classroom, that most intensive classroom, actually out to the general education population.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really powerful about the whole premise of generalization. Generalization is ensuring uh, and helping students achieve their greatest potential. And it's where you don't want just them to learn in the classroom. And so you obviously have so much experience, both personally and also professionally. But I'm curious, what has your son taught you about communication, about learning, and or resilience?
That what you expect to see is not always the truth,
Hmm.
but because something looks different doesn't mean it's not as powerful.
Hmm.
Um, Clarence and others may not communicate in the same way we expect them to. And for some people, they view that as negative behaviors, and often it's communication trying to tell you something. Um, he showed me that he is more than capable. He works, he is productive, he is full of life, he enriches our life every day. He's just one of my kids.
Yeah.
But I think if I was blind to thinking that he would do everything the way I do it, it might be a different story.
Yeah.
So he opened me up to understand that folks learn in so many different ways. And
Yeah.
so that in turn affected my teaching. That in turn affected how I approach students with other disabilities.
Yeah.
So he's had a remarkable effect on my life and my whole trajectory for my career.
That's really wonderful. I feel like that is another example of why it's so important to make note of autism acceptance, not just autism awareness. And so I feel like this is a question I could ask at the very end of our conversation, but like why, like what does autism acceptance versus awareness mean? Not saying awareness is bad at all, but I feel like there's just another level in the understanding of acceptance.
I think whenever you're looking at anyone who's differently abled, it probably starts with awareness. In my family, because we had to learn what this involved, what autism was, I was blessed that my family was very open as well, and everybody joined in. We learned together. It's a village, but I think you start with awareness. What are we dealing with? What are we looking at? But always remember, this is a person. This is a person. We all have idiosyncrasies. Some people learn different. Some people speak different. Some people physically are different, but we're people. And I think you move from awareness to acceptance like you would any other person.
Yeah.
I think that just falls across the spectrum of people.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And my final question in regards to like the personal life and in connection with autism, what advice would you provide to parents who are just starting on their journey with a child with autism?
The parents are the most important part, and I say this because I've spent a lot of time during doing parent seminars because I find often, again, parents are isolated, don't know where to look for good information. And so I say to parents is understand that even though your journey is your own journey and how you manage your family life and who surrounds you, it's important to get good information. So go to trusted people. The internet sometimes can be scary. So find good sources of information. Talk to your family doctors if you have them. You know, Create a village around you of support. There are a lot of support mechanisms in the community. Um, and most of all, self care. When you are caring for someone who has a disability, similar to when we're caring for our parents as they age, you have to take care of yourself in order to support somebody else. So, in that village, make sure there's a spot in there for you for self care, where you can advocate for yourself, where you can speak, where you can ask for understanding, and sometimes just to relax.
Yeah.
That's important. Take care of yourself.
You're speaking some powerful stuff, Lisa. So
Life.
I'm enjoying this thus far. So I say let's keep on going.
Let's keep
I say
going.
why stop now? We
That's
still have 20
right.
minutes left. So I feel like I'm learning so much too, even though we work together every
Yeah,
single
every
day.
day,
So
every day.
this is wonderful. Okay, so and we actually have a comment from Carrie. She's one of our Rockstar users out in Indiana. She said, "Agreed. Finding good sources of information is so important." So thank you, Carrie,
Thanks,
for
Gary.
that comment. Okay, so tell me about that transition. You said you were not in education
Right.
before, but then being so closely related to autism kind of stemmed this new like passion and desire to jump into education. So did you jump right into the classroom? What did that look like?
Actually, yes. The program that we have is one in which you are learning on the go. So
Mhm.
within a couple months of being accepted, I was already in the classroom. So
Love
you
it.
talk about boots on the ground learning, yeah, and having no background.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a great program because they provide so much support. I had some great mentors that I worked with. My principal was Brenda Smith at the time, and you could have asked for a better principal. And when you have that, it makes it a lot easier to go forward, put that effort every day and learn.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, boots on the ground learning. And so I
Yeah.
got my certification.
Well, and then I also want to acknowledge that what you said is that there was not a lot of curriculum that was produced for
Yeah.
kiddos with autism. And so it sounds like I'm inferring is that you had to be the one that created the curriculum programs essentially.
Absolutely right. And I refer to that often whenever I'm doing professional learning. I said, before we had to hunt and peck, and you
Yeah.
found what you could. I had a wonderful assistant principal, and he would get the books from the general ed curriculum for me because, a lot of our kids with autism do not have intellectual disability. They have those average IQs. And so he would give me the books and let me scale them up or down as I needed to make sure that I had some resources. But yeah, for the rest, you're hunting and pecking to find something so you can educate your students, not just sitting in the classroom.
Yeah. I feel like there's a show that leadership is so important is that
It is.
having a principal, assistant principal, someone in the district that understands what you're going through as an educator is so
Absolutely.
important. And where you feel
Absolutely.
supported and where you don't have to go all over the place is that they are on your side.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like that was a really difficult season job that you entered into because you were constantly learning about autism, but then also you were learning how to teach and develop and coach students with autism. And then also, meanwhile, is that you were learning how to raise your son. And so tell me then about like the key, like with all of that information coming in, like that's a whirlwind, what were then some of the results of like some of the key initiatives that you like put together, or what helped you build the system to become like a renowned educator?
Like again, administration was important because they allowed me to figure it out and teach what I thought would work, which did work. Ended up actually becoming the new teacher of the year for the district, which was always
Okay.
kind of fun, kind of fun. And then I was asked to help restructure an alternative school in a county,
Oh, all right.
and that was for students with special needs.
Yeah.
And I loved my first year of teaching. I've loved every year of teaching, but alternative school, that was just
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
And again, we were allowed to be creative in our teaching, great administration leading us, and a lot of support. We had therapists, we had counselors, we had top level teachers in every area, and we were allowed to create an environment for these students that helped them grow. It was an alternative school, kids didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
And teachers
Wow.
love teaching me. Sometimes alternative schools get kind of a bad mark, like the
Yeah.
bad place. It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow. I mean, that gets me fired up. I'm always really passionate to hear about transformative education that
Hmm.
ultimately impacts the students. And so it sounds like you had a really pivotal role with impacting your students at the alternative school. And so then tell me then the progress or the process rather, that like was it right after that point then where you became part of the state of South Carolina, like part of their DOE and autism coordinator? How did that
One
trajectory?
more step. I
One more step. Tell me about that next
was a
step.
behavior consultant for a large school district, which I also loved. with a
Okay.
lot of focus on autism. And then the State Department decided to create a position specifically for an autism consultant who would
Okay.
lead all the autism initiatives for the state. And so I applied, jumped right on it, and was hired. And it was so unique because oftentimes when you come into a new position, they weren't quite sure what direction it should go. So it gave me the
Yeah.
opportunity again to create a pathway. And so I was able to create a number of initiatives that eventually led me to RoboKind, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
Um, we were able to set up an autism advisory task force,
Yeah.
which was a collaboration between educators, parents, schools, paraprofessionals, nonprofits, for-profits, to see what our students in our state needed. One of the biggest initiatives was, of course, RoboKind. We
Yeah.
ran a pilot with RoboKind. Started out with 16 of our schools after going through a process. And as we would go through this 3-year pilot, more and more schools wanted to join us. And I did a lot of research into robotics and curriculums for autism specifically. I did 4 months of research and discovered that RoboKind was the way to go. And one of the things that was most powerful about it was the curriculum. I'm big on technology. I'm not a technology native, but I love technology.
Yeah.
And RoboKind had the technology, which our students love. It's actual evidence-based practice, but that curriculum is so powerful. Um, I was all in with it. Our teachers were all in it, and we had tremendous outcomes with that
Yeah.
program.
Well, you said that you are a researcher, and I know that you're a big data nerd at heart.
I
And
am.
so I also want to acknowledge that you are Dr. Lisa Kershaw. So tell me, did the doctorate come about in the midst of all the things that you're doing?
Um, I don't know. I have 2 bachelors, I have a master's, and I got my doctorate. And you want to know the truth?
What's that?
Because it seemed fun. Because it was research based. It
Yeah.
was, and I actually did my doctorate on oh gosh, it was on alternative learning schools.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just the research for me. I said, you know what? Why not? I've come this far with my degrees. I said
Why
the only
not?
thing I need still is an associate. But
Yeah.
I just loved it for the research. It was
Yeah.
just a lot of fun for me, honestly.
And that clearly, like your heart for research, then obviously in turn helped as you were the autism coordinator for the
Did.
state of South Carolina,
Yeah,
as you're researching about various products, programs that helped students on the spectrum.
right.
And so then you said the curriculum, like
Hmm.
that really is what drew you to RoboKind, but then also relationship as well. Can you talk about the early relationships that you had with the RoboKind team?
So, my first week of work at the State Department, my director, Dr. John Payne, who was tremendous, he said, "Hey, would you like to go to the State Department with me and view this new program?" So I'm new on the job at the State Department. I'm not saying no. So we went to the State Department, and there was a demonstration of RoboKind with the government leadership. And so as we left that demonstration, which I was impressed by, but I'm the kind of person, again, that wants to research. He said, "Do you want this program in South Carolina?" I said, "I don't know yet." I said, "Give me some time."
Yeah.
And that's where I went and did 4 months of research. I researched programs internationally.
Wow.
And I think at the time there were 3 other viable robotics companies.
Okay.
And at the end of those 4 years, I said, this is the only one that has an evidence-based
Wow.
practice
So
curriculum.
that was like the line in the sands where you're like, okay, this is what draws me to RoboKind over other companies.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd started to develop a relationship because I'm sure I drove them crazy at the time, those who were providing the demo, because I would shoot them question after question after
Yeah.
question. But I wanted answers because our kids are worth it. And
Hmm.
so that curriculum, I love the robot, and I love how it's grown.
Yeah.
But that curriculum was so powerful in
Yeah.
what I thought it could do for our students. I went back to my director at 4 months and said, "Yeah, I'd like to write a proposal for us to go ahead and start a pilot with this."
Oh, I love it. And for those of you who are listening, what Lisa's talking about is our social skills curriculum. It's kind of like our flagship original curriculum. Now we've expanded into phonics for releasing numeracy shortly, but what we have grown from social skills is was it 5 different modules,
It was.
starting with the robo quiz, then we have
Listed.
calm down,
Mhm.
and then emotional understanding, conversational, and then also situational, where it helps students with these fundamental skills that, again, hopefully that they'll be able to generalize into the real world. So that's the curriculum that she's talking about. And I know that we're case endorsed, which is a highly touted endorsement. We don't take that lightly. So I can see why where you felt like this was different and totally worth it. And so you have been part of the professional learning, or excuse me, the RoboKind team full time now for, gosh, 3 years, Lisa? I think you're coming up on your third anniversary.
It's that cake or something, yeah.
Well, gotta let me put that on my notes real quick.
Yeah,
Um, that was I think it was like May 1st or something
it
around
was May
around.
1st,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so you've been here and you served in various roles. Sorry for those, my dogs start barking in the back, but in regards to the sorry, excuse me, distracted. The Let me reel it back in. Shout out to this brain. Okay, so you've been part of the RoboKind team now for the past 3 years. You've served in a myriad of roles. What you're currently doing now is being a partnership manager, where you're supporting the state of South Carolina along with the Upper Southeast. And then you're also over the professional learning team. So as over the professional learning team, how do you help educators become more effective in supporting students with autism?
Having been a teacher and served in multiple levels in education, I think I tend to take the stance of what do educators need when they're in the classroom. We see a lot of educators who have a lot of programs that are thrown at them, a lot of
Yeah,
curriculums that they have to implement. And so you think about what is their capacity to take on another program?
yeah,
And what do they need to learn the most from this program so that it's beneficial, a help to them, a tool for them, as well as beneficial for their students. And then I look at our PL contractors, which they are fantastic with what they can do, their skills, their background, and each of their natural styles of teaching. How can they bring our professional learning and their style to our educators? And so looking at that all together, I think we put together a really comprehensive program. I think back from 2017 when we first did the pilot in South Carolina, and the professional learning we started with then. It was new, and just how much we continue to grow and evolve. And I think we're still going through that because we're constantly looking at educators and their needs, students' needs, and how we can provide the best evidence-based professional learning to our partners.
yeah. And so then, how, in your conversations, in your coaching of educators, how does RoboKind, or essentially, like, how are you encouraging and providing that sense of comfort to teachers that
Mm.
RoboKind's curriculum is the right solution for their classroom?
A lot of times it starts with a conversation, even at the beginning of the PL sessions. But we grow to understand what do you have right now as an educator focused in this area, which there is still a lack of in terms of curriculum, in terms of supports for those students. So what do you need? And also, what is your skill set? Our program has technology, and a lot of folks are not comfortable with that technology. And some people are technology tired. And so I really try to bring to them how this curriculum can support their students in any form, how this curriculum can support their students, and how I can make it friendly for them to run.
Yeah,
If you make it user friendly, they understand, they're comfortable with it, they're more likely to use it, and let them know that you have ongoing support. I'm not coming in one day to train you and then you'll never see or hear from any of us again.
yeah.
We're providing that ongoing support. So if you have a question you just want to pop to us, send it. We'll get an answer right back to you.
Well, what I appreciate about what you've done, and then also what so many others have been part of the professional learning team have done. Tanisha is here as well, so hi Tanisha, good to see you. Is that you guys have created such a really worthwhile like ramp for educators because yeah, technology can be difficult, it can be new, and you've done like this crawl, walk, run type of methodology and ensuring that teachers and educators and users are properly supported. And so I have so greatly appreciated seeing you being both a partnership manager, but then also over the professional learning team, is to where you're able to merge both worlds. Because
You know,
like all the things that you're going through. And so I just want to say thank you and affirm that you're doing a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you. They go hand in hand. They really do.
Yeah.
And it helps us to really know our partners. So
Hmm.
I appreciate the connection between those two roles.
Yeah. Well, I have one final question for you, Dr. Kershaw, is how do you see, like you mentioned, like with your personal connection and like Clarence, uh, 30 years ago, autism education was very bare, if anything, like lacking essentially. We're now here in 2025. Is how do you see the world of autism education evolving? Like, and how does technology help that?
So I think number one, recognizing that technology benefits our students is really important when we're creating programming and curriculums for our students. The information that we have about autism has definitely improved. We are still always learning more about it if you're looking into the research of it. But I think we're better educating our teachers on how to support our students. And I think one of the biggest areas has been in communication. We understand behaviors communication, and helping our teachers to understand that, but providing them with the tools like RoboKind, providing them with that tool so now they can actually support their students and their students are achieving. Again, not sitting there and not trying to figure things out. You're up ready to go. You have a viable curriculum and your students are learning. And that in itself, it provides to teachers that motivation to keep doing what they're doing because our teachers are tremendous and they put in so much work. Anything we can do to provide tools for them so they can keep doing that is what we want to do.
Lovely. Well, Dr. Kershaw, just want to say thank you. You mentioned that you might also have a special guest being able to say hey, or are they not around right now?
He popped back out, unfortunately, but Clarence,
Okay.
hi, everyone.
Okay. Wonderful.
He said he wanted to be sure he recognized all the faces on the screen.
Definitely fair. So all that to say, Lisa, I'm so thankful that you are here as part of this world that is leading and helping us navigate education, navigate autism, and that's why here at RoboKind we intentionally say autism acceptance. And so we are so glad that you're part of the team and are helping us get better as a company and supporting our teachers and also our kiddos. Um, and as we wrap up this conversation, we just have a couple of really basic announcements. Is for those of you who are RoboKind facilitators, is that we would absolutely love for you to become a RoboKind ambassador. Is that you'll be able to share your experiences, you'll be able to gain exclusive and early access to some product offerings, you contribute to product development. And so essentially, we would love for you to become a VIP. And so go ahead and scan that QR code to learn more information and, of course, apply. Next is that we have a few more days into our Autism Acceptance Month challenge. We've had so many amazing classrooms that have submitted their coloring or drawings, essentially of Milo and Carver, Veda, and also Jemmy. So please go ahead and print out these. The principle is found in your teacher resources on RK Central and submit them via Milo at robokind.com or post on the RK community by 4:29, and then 3 lucky classrooms will be selected and announced on 4:30. And then final one is, of course, we mentioned this before, but we have a podcast now. Super exciting stuff. And so feel free to scan this QR code. It's called Exceptional Minds with RoboKind. Our CEO, Brian Baggs, he's the one that's leading the charge and having some really profound discussions about the work that we do day in and also day out. And so again, thank you guys so much. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you later.
That wraps up this episode of Exceptional Minds with RoboKind. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found inspiration to bring back to your own learning community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to connect with you on social media, so follow RoboKind for more resources and updates on inclusive education. Until next time, keep supporting and celebrating every learner. And remember, together we can empower exceptional minds.